Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle,
I am here tonight.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Here.
Councilmember Gotchel,
Here.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox, here, Councilmember Sharp,
Present.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight, City Manager Brown?
I have no changes or additions, Your Honor.
All right. Any from up here? I've got one. I would like to finish the discussion on the charter amendment process. So we'll do that after correspondence. Next up is the approval of minutes. We've got one set of minutes tonight, and they're the corrected regular city council meeting minutes of October 25th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any comments, corrections?
I couldn't tell from the email what was changed. You said a couple of things on 2 pages, but
I highlighted the words that were changed.
okay.
In the
I guess
one-
maybe on my cell phone I couldn't read. That's fine.
I can tell you what they are if you'd like to know.
Let's get it on the record.
On page 3, the second paragraph, the 5th line down starts with "have the knowledge." I added the word "of" at the end. And then that same page, the 3rd paragraph from the bottom, the last line says "past and present" instead of "past a present."
Understood.
And then on page 6, the 4th line down, I had rational instead of rationale.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I got a motion and a second to approve the corrected regular city council meeting minutes of October 25th, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. We have one item of correspondence tonight, and that's a memo from Assistant City Manager Benson regarding the Village Center Area Zoning Ordinance Amendments. And that'll bring us to the discussion of the charter amendment process. We left off at the last meeting. We still had 3 more items to talk about under the should be discussed paragraphs. And do you want me to take that, Councilman? Okay. All right. All right, I'll start it out while he's filling out. It's section 4.9, and it says, "It is found by this committee that this may be appropriate to further expand on the duties and qualifications of the city manager position as somewhat similar to the city manager's role in Chapter 5 of the Charter. This committee also feels that it may be appropriate to move this section to Chapter 6 to coincide with all the other appointed officer descriptions, since there are additional subsections within Chapter 6 which may also relate to the city clerk position."
And, yep, so that was the first instance of city manager. There was a typo. It should have been city clerk. What we found is most of the officer positions within the city have duties and qualifications outlined in the charter. The clerk really doesn't have that for whatever reason. So similar to, there's a whole section about the city manager and their qualifications and duties and whatnot. We thought it might be appropriate to kind of add that, a similar section for the city clerk, just to detail that a bit more, since right now there really isn't anything other than stating that the city clerk reports to city council, but doesn't give a lot of detail beyond that.
Any discussion? Councilmember Behrman?
I guess following the same logic as before, aren't most of the responsibilities of the clerk defined by state law? And do we really need to be putting this into our charter?
It's not to fully dictate everything they're supposed to be doing, because there are some responsibilities in here, but it's more if you compare the city manager position, which is in Chapter 5, and then Section 5.1 is appointment qualifications, compensation. There's no appointment qualifications process for the city clerk. So it's kind of looking to potentially establish what we would be looking for in a city clerk position as we have outlined for city manager.
And the belief is this needs to be done through a charter amendment versus possibly the procedures or something else, or developing a process when we need to find a clerk? I'm just trying to understand why this needs to be a charter amendment.
Not everything here needs to be a charter amendment. The way to look at this document is mainly, as we were reviewing the charter, these were the items that came up for discussion. So it's not that we're stating that everything on this document needs to be a charter amendment. There might be other ways to handle it, but it struck us as a little bit odd that there's a section for the appointment process and qualifications for the city manager, but nothing for the city clerk. So that's
Understood. Thank you.
however we want to handle it. The moral is that we felt that that should be corrected or addressed in some manner.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, all right, so I guess we'll just look at this one as, like you just said, it's not necessarily a charter amendment, but needs to take a look at and get those descriptions in there. So we'll move on to the next one, section 4.6.
Yep, so 4.6 comes from things that have been stated in numerous budget sessions. It says the current start time for adjustments to the salary paid to council members is a bit obtuse and inefficient. It talks about how it has to take place after an election and how far before then and whatnot. And so our thought was maybe to simplify it, stating that if any change was to be made, then it would just take effect at the next fiscal year. I know that some people, like in the past, I've recommended lowering it. Other people have recommended increasing it, but then it always comes into this discussion, well, we can't do anything for 3 years anyway because of the next election or whatever, and so it's kind of a conversation that leads nowhere. So it was more just if we wanted to simplify something that's currently in the charter based on conversations that have been had at budget study sessions.
Anybody? All right, maybe this is one that we might want to look at as a charter amendment, because I don't think it's an important item for this council right now, but in future councils, they may want to do something like that. And since we're going to be going through the process of doing this, we might as well have this looked at and go from there. All right, and the last one is general note number 1.
Yes, and so that comes from our kind of notes document that I had sent out to everyone a few weeks ago, I think. And it talks about pronoun usage within the city. It's something that we briefly discussed a handful, well, I can't even remember how long ago at meetings. But right now, everything is stated in the masculine pronouns, and we felt it more appropriate to use more plural pronouns and female pronouns rather than somebody had noted the catch-all kind of section at the very end that talks about that masculine shall be inclusive of like the neuter, which is not, it's an odd way of stating anything, frankly. So the committee wanted to recommend that that language be amended to more accurately portray where we're at and where society's at right now, with everyone being included in the process, not just everything in the masculine term.
Any questions, comments? Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. Now, we consulted with the, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a little while ago, we consulted with a lawyer about this issue, which I think we all agree with, but it was going to require quite an effort, to put the basically the whole thing on, on the ballot to get it fixed, or have the charter, not amendment process, but the charter review process was gonna require, putting together a committee of people from the, residents from the city, and it was just gonna be too big a task. Clean me up here, what, you're shaking your head.
Where this ended was if we did do a change like this, we don't have, if we went through a full charter review, that's the case you were talking about where we'd have to have a committee. Where we're making this amendment here, if it were to be made, we would just have to provide a copy of the charter as it would be written so everyone could see the change in language once. We wouldn't have to have a giant committee to review everything. We wouldn't have to bullet point every line and section that this gets changed. It's just that, here's the current version.
Yeah.
Then here's the new version or the red line version of here's all the instances this will change, but it's not going to be a case where every ballot has to have like section 1, section 1B, where it's all changed. It's just here's the new document. Are you okay with it?
And on the ballot, it would say, and maybe Kathy can help out with this. So we got this posted as you walk into your precinct, the 2 copies, and on the ballot it would say, see the board out on the out on the line. No, nothing, quite like that. But it would be, we've changed some description of what we did. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. How are we telling voters, what they're voting for? We have to be careful with the language of what's on the ballot.
So I guess just reading, I can read from the attorney's response to us, where we asked this question of changing pronoun usage and whatnot. And the response was that correspondence was sent to the Attorney General's office to ask whether one charter amendment, so just voting on it once, not every single instance, to make the change from he to he, she, or they throughout the city charter would be permissible. The response was yes, but the city council is required to submit a document with its resolution for the ballot question, which shows every proposed change throughout the charter, and a document which shows all the proposed changes. Then the attorney notes this type of charter amendment was done in Royal Oak in 2015 and last year in Muskegon. So again, it's when we send it for approval to the state, we have to show what it would then look like, and similarly with voters, whether we post on the board and the website and kind of educate, but it doesn't need to be every, at least according to the attorney, the ballot doesn't need to have every single instance written out on it.
Yeah, that seems very doable, and if we all agree on it, that is. But the language, whatever's on the ballot, it'll be something similar to those 2 communities you mentioned, and that should work. That should be fairly simple and easy enough for folks to, digest. So I like it.
Councilmember Sharp, do you have an opinion on this, up, down? Should we pursue this as a charter amendment? or-
Assuming, because I think one of the difficult discussions we had before was how complex it was going to be, but I think it's very similar to some of the state proposals we just saw on the ballot, where there's just a summary, and it's like 6 lines,
Yep.
but it doesn't show the
Exactly.
thousands of pages of documents that are really behind the constitutional changes that were proposed. So if we can do something simple, I support being more inclusive.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
I support the changes.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho?
Yes.
Councilmember Berman?
No, I support the change for us being more inclusive.
Okay.
I think this is probably one of, in my eyes, 2 or 3 things that I would feel comfortable moving forward. I'm just not comfortable with us putting 8 or 9 proposals on the. I want us to narrow it down to the 2 or 3 things we like to see and just move forward with 2 or 3 things.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Resnick, and this top.
Yeah, and when I searched through it, there's 34 instances where he is used exclusively for describing a house or whatever. So I think if we could simplify it, we don't have to have 34 different communities.
Yep.
And do it all inclusive, I'd be in support of the solution.
Very good, and I feel the same way. And with that, that wraps up the pressing and should be discussed. Now I'm going to ask council members to do homework and get it in as soon as possible, because I agree too, we don't need to have 14 items on the a ballot. So let's look over the items that were on the pressing and should be discussed. And let's come up with, give us your top 3. Send an email to me with your top 3 and I'll forward it to the committee and we'll go from there. And that way, we're saving time tonight because we'll probably have a lengthy meeting after the meeting. So in order to save time tonight, we'll do that and get it to me as soon as we can, and I'll get it to the committee and we'll get that rolling so we can get that on the get it going and get it on the ballot. Sound good? Very good. So we'll move on now to call to the public. This is the first call to the public. The rules to the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the first call to the public tonight? Seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public and move on to city manager's report. We got 2 tonight. The first one is the fire monthly report of September 2022. Any questions for the chief? Man, you're getting off easy. Police monthly report, September 2022. Any for the police chief? Councilmember Garland Fox?
I have a question about the crime classification. So, just to make sure I'm reading this correctly, under, for instance, Group A crimes. So you have September calls, September 22 compared to September 21, and then all arrested subjects. So is this the clearance rate? for
All
the-
arrested subjects. Where's,
Right next to, so in the box.
Page 2 of your warrant.
it's not necessarily the clearance rates, no.
what
It would
is-
just be arrested people for that month. So that's not going to be for all Class A crimes. It could be any crime.
Okay.
Class A, Class B, and
It's
Class D.
It's just general.
It's all arrests.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for the chief? Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you. While you're up at the podium, the catalytic converter crisis that's been going on in southeastern Michigan, is it still ongoing?
It's still ongoing. We did have an incident a couple weeks ago where we had a number of them taken. We're still getting them periodically. It looks like it's an organized group where they're going around. We're having the officers pay special attention, especially at night, in our industrial areas. They're the ones that seem to be getting them the most.
It's still with us.
It's still, I don't see this going
No.
away because there's so much money involved.
Any other questions? Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I got a motion and a support. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No unfinished business tonight, so we'll move on to new business. Item number 1 under new business is a recommendation to approve an amended professional service agreement with Safe Built Michigan LLC to extend the term of the agreement for the building department services for a 3-year period to expire December 31st, 2025, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. Also, before I turn this over to City Manager Brown, since Assistant City Manager Benson's not here tonight, with us tonight from Safe Built, we have Ken Pike and Kelly Lindsay. Mr. Manager?
So just to cover this briefly, the report to council covers some of the basic facts about when the contracts were initially signed, amendment dates, things of that nature, and talks about what's happened historically with decreases in fees. The proposal that's before us is for a 3-year period that would be set to expire December 31st, 2025. And the terms of the contract would stay consistent with the last amendment, and that's really the only major item that I would choose to separately cover. The city's been very pleased with the services that's been provided by Safe Built. I think some of the benefits that I would list in relation to this, prior practice in other communities, when you had something on staff, there were expenses involved with that would come into play. There would also be the breadth and width of abilities that a single employee might have. That were the option that you would go to. There are needs for individual contracts with individual inspectors that come into play, and oftentimes those become problematic in terms of replacing them on a regular basis. This contract with Safe Built is a clean solution for the city that I think does very well by our standard of service that we provide to people that are customers in construction and development services. And in light of that, and in light of the fact that we're not looking for any changes in the terms of the contract, we think that it's a fair extension offer and one that we would recommend to council for approval.
Any questions? Councilmember Granlund Fox?
So I see that the breakdown of how the charges work as far as the 63.5% of permit fees, but I don't see anything that shows what those permit fees are to try to figure out what that cost is to the city.
Yeah, there's a whole schedule of those permit fees that I wouldn't be able to give you any encyclopedic reiteration of, but I could provide after the fact to council if you would like to see it.
Do you know what the cost was to the city last year to Safe Built for their services?
I'd have to look at the budget cost. Ken, do you have any idea on that number?
I have it in front of me.
I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize.
Deputy Mayor's got it.
So the estimated actual 6/30/2022 would have been $470,672 for the actual building official contract. And of course, code enforcement was a little bit more than that, like $7,500.
Could you repeat what that was, the total?
$470,672.
Yeah.
170,000, that's what we paid to Safe Built?
Yep.
That would cover their portion of the fees, the building officials' rate, if you will, the inspector's rate. We have multiple employees that are in the city facilities during the week, including the building official. So that would cover all of those personnel costs. And I believe, I don't have an exact number on this either, but I understand that I believe our revenue from various permits is in the ballpark of over $1 million last year. So
the revenue was over $1 million and our costs were $470. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
And do you know how many employees this covered, this $470,000 that we paid?
I would defer to Ken Pike on that.
We have a, should I say?
Yeah, come up to the mic, please.
We currently use 5 inspectors. There's myself, another full-time building inspector. I have a part-time building inspector. I have a plumbing mechanical inspector, an electrical inspector. Not to mention that when people are out, I had somebody on a medical leave for 8 weeks. I called somebody else in. So there's no lapse in coverage. I get coverage as I need.
So this covers 5 inspectors, you said, plus yourself?
Yes.
And they're a combination of part-time and full-time?
There's one part-time, everybody else, no, there's 2 part-times, I'm sorry. I have a part-time electrical and then a part-time building inspector.
So 3 full-time and 2 part-time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gacho.
Thank you. I think I'm looking back at the July 26th packet we were provided, which had the June 2022 permits on it, which would have been our last month of last fiscal year. The total collected 2021-2022 permit fees was $2,024,984. So 63.5% of that would be just under $1.3 million, 1.285. So the numbers there are a bit different.
I believe that might include sewer tap fees.
Right, there's other fees.
So sewer tap fees, Safehold does not get any portion of, that stays in your city. And there's some other fees there that are locked into the city that we don't get a portion of. We get a portion of building permit fees, it's a line item on the building permit application. We get a portion of plan review fees, inspection fees if they're applicable.
So backing out the residential and commercial sewer tap, it's 1.294, so 1.3 million.
Well, there's also administration fees that are kept. There's an archiving fee that's 1% or $5 minimum. So sometimes that's quite high. That's also kept for the city to do digital archiving of documents so that you don't have large files kept off-site. It's digitally kept. We're in the process of changing that. That's been in the process for several years. So again, the fees that Safebuilt gets a portion of is the line item for the building permit fee and plan review fees. That's pretty much it. You have an archiving, you have an administration fee of $39 on every application. I believe it's $50 on a plumbing permit. That's the city of Wixels. We don't get any of that. There's also a $27 zoning fee that's usually applied to a building permit. We don't get nothing of that. Again, we get a portion of 2 line items on the permit, generally for the building permits. And then a plumbing permit, circuits, electrical would be circuits, fixtures and plumbing, we get portions of that, 63.5%. So when you look at the 2.2 million, yeah, that's what came through the department. That is not what Safebuilt gets a portion of.
Okay.
That's everything in the department Safebuilt walked away with or took 400, whatever it was.
So we have a better understanding, like, just running down this list, there's commercial, industrial, there's new build, I'm assuming you get a portion of, correct?
Yep.
Alterations, additions, repairs.
Yep.
Demolition, which was 0 anyway, but
Yep.
Electrical, mechanical, plumbing, zoning permits, you had mentioned the additional fee off of those. Sewer taps, you said no. Communication towers was 0.
We would get a portion of the communication.
Okay.
It's usually minimum.
And then the temporary tents/events, which was very nominal, and signs.
Yep, we would get both portions of that. We actually do inspections for that, and so it's a small portion.
Okay.
A sign permit, $400.
Yeah.
You don't get all of it. Again, there's administration fees that are always attached to
Okay.
every application. Safebuilt doesn't see any of that.
So roughly, without going through residential, probably all the same categories you would pull from, and then the same rules would apply about administration fees?
Correct.
Okay.
Then there are the other fees that they charge for code enforcement inspections at an hourly rate, and also hourly rates on court appearances as well, which comes into play.
So, I don't know if it'd be Ken or Kelly or if it's Steve, but could you get us the figure that Safebuilt was built, that you guys got from the city last year? Can we get that number?
Yeah, we can give you the last several
Yeah.
years. So,
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Pike, I have 2 questions, if you please, Your Honor. First one on the code enforcement inspections at $54.75 an hour. How does that work exactly? Let me give you an example. You might have gotten a note from me a few weeks ago about a boat or an RV that was parked in somebody's front yard on Charms Road, and you said you'd take care of it. I assume the city got charged $54.75 an hour, whatever the prorated time was, to go out and look at that. Is that correct? And then speak to the owner and tell them what the rules are, and then follow up, perhaps. Does that get charged to?
Yes, that would be a charge. Basically, it breaks down, we do break it down to quarter-hour increments.
Okay.
So basically, 5 minutes or 15 is 15. And then it's tracked in the building department's S&A system. And if it goes well, it could be one visit to the resident, and you get an agreement with them. They'll tell you they'll get rid of it in 3 or 4 days, and then you're done. But if it continues, people don't cooperate, yes,
You have to go back.
I have to return, and eventually it could go into a court, write a ticket.
Yeah, okay. And that's how we get our money back, if it had to go that far.
Or some portion. I mean, it's not a big money-making
No, I'm not
for Statesville or for the
It's not
city.
about making money, it's about.
Correct. No,
It's about people following the ordinances, that's what it's about.
And quite frankly, we do 10 to 15 hours a month
Okay.
on code enforcement.
So look for a note from me, I don't know if anybody else has noticed the boat that's hiding behind Arborvitae's on Terra Court, just off Wixom Road, that's in storage, and it's all tucked up next to the Arborvitae's, but I'll send you a note about it. Anyway, second question, it happened to me once, and a neighbor across the street, which he was violating code and putting a fence up without permission. And one time I happened to be pouring a pad of concrete and repairing a driveway. Apparently I needed a permit for it. I'm pretty sure I didn't know I needed one. But somebody patrolled and found that happening. Who does that these days? Does that happen anymore? Or is it only at the $54 rate if somebody says, hey Ken, somebody's putting the driveway in across the street, have you guys permitted it? How does that work?
Basically, if the inspectors are out and we see somebody doing construction type work, we approach them and they need to get a permit. And that usually doesn't involve code enforcement unless we don't get a reaction from them, and we have to track it. So then we have to open a code enforcement so we can track it, follow through, and get back with it. The code enforcement itself, boats and driveways, that sort of thing, unplated cars, that's on a complaint basis.
Okay.
We don't go out, we don't go looking for any of that. Somebody has to approach us, the department, Wixom staff, and at least make a complaint. It can be a verbal complaint, it doesn't have to, you don't have to give your name, it's anonymous, and then we follow up. Sometimes you go out and the boat was there for a couple days and it's already been moved. It's just closed immediately.
So the finding an issue with a permit is more on it's not a patrol or a planned patrol, it's we just happened to be in the neighborhood looking at another inspection, noticed you didn't have a permit, you were doing some building, didn't have a permit.
Most generally, but it could be a
It
call.
could also be by complaint basis, couldn't it? If somebody calls and say, hey, guy's putting a deck in and it's really close to my house, I don't think he's got a permit for it, you would go look at
Yes.
that. That would be $54.75 an hour until.
If it results in a building permit, you usually don't charge.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Berman?
The only thing I just would like to add is dealing with several different building departments in different municipalities that are all employees of the city, and sometimes you're waiting 90 days for them to actually review something and get it back to you, and 2 weeks out to get an inspector out to have them inspect something. I really appreciate that that's not the way we do things here. I know from my personal experience how quick the turnaround is on getting permits issued, and all of the inspectors that ever came out to my house for my projects were extremely professional. Even if it didn't pass the first time because the contractor did something wrong, they at least explained it, why it wasn't passing, and then obviously the contractor had to fix it, but never had any issues. Everybody was extremely professional. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Grella Fox?
So I'm struggling a little bit with this, and it has nothing to do with what you do or how you do it. I mean, I've never heard any complaints about Safe Build or any of the employees. But in looking at the numbers, there's such a big discrepancy between the numbers that have been floating around. And so I have a hard time supporting this without seeing the actual numbers. With that said, I know that the trades are extremely difficult to find right now, people in the trades. I see it in my day job. I understand it's extremely difficult. But without the numbers, I can't this.
Yeah, if I can address that, we put this forward in an early enough time frame. It expires at December 31st. If you want the additional information before you consider it, if you want to table it for a period of time until the next council meeting, that's certainly not an issue. We did put it up early enough. So that's not something that I would have any difficulty in with all. The only thing is, I don't know if Ms. Lindsay's going to want to make the trip back from Kalamazoo a second time, but that's not an issue from us operationally. If you would like to get some additional information, we can have further contact about what you're looking for, make sure we provide it in the next report. I've got a pretty good understanding of what you're looking for right now, but might have a couple more conversations just to flesh that out. So if that's what the majority council wants to do, that's not an issue whatsoever, and feel free to take your time on that. I want you to be comfortable with the decision.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yeah, and again, the numbers were in front of us, and they were part of our budget session packets. And again, maybe for reference for everybody, and this would be on the general fund revenue side, for proposed budget 22-23, under the building permits and fees account, and I'll just shorten it, 608-031, there was $475,000 that we approved as the budget as the estimated revenue that was going to come in for those permits and fees, which Safe-Built is compensated for. And on the expenses side, under the building department, construction and development, which is account 801-240, there was $308,747 for the proposed 22-23 budget, which is 65% of those fees. I think I'm satisfied knowing, and that was one of my questions, was how many full-time, how many part-time heads are we talking, or how many FTE equivalents are we at? And it looks like we have 3 full-time inspectors, and then 2 part-time. We're also working for other cities, I imagine, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
But don't forget to add in the coverage. Plumbing mechanical guy was out for 8 weeks.
And I think those were some of the concerns. I actually investigated some of the cities who, within the past 2 or 3 years, actually did not renew their Safe-Built contract and went back to part-time. But I think the trades availability is, a lot of the concern that people have. And I think it's fair the way we do it as a percentage of those permit fees. So I'm satisfied with it.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. And so I had, at a previous meeting, I had asked if we can get an electronic version of the budget. Can we please? That'd be very helpful. But not having the pages in front of me, the figures you were referring to, Deputy Mayor, were those the final figures from last fiscal year, or were those the numbers that were proposed for this budget that was passed?
Proposed for this budget.
Okay, because I know Marilyn has told us in the past that those are just guesstimates that she puts in, so it's not really the actual. So that if Councilman Grunland Fox would like to motion to table, I would support that. I don't, as the city manager said, it doesn't really hurt timeline-wise. I don't think you need to make the drive again necessarily if you don't want to, but it's always nice just to have all of the information instead of proposed for this year and whatnot, because there is some discrepancy between what gets reported to us and what is actually paid. Thank you.
Councilmember Behrman?
So I guess maybe this is a question, and this is the way I interpreted it, and I agree we had a proposed budget, but let's say the economy stops and people stop doing additions and stop new construction. Because you're paid on a percentage base of these fees, what we're paying you is going to dramatically drop.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, what we've paid in the past, frankly, isn't relevant, because we don't know what next year is going to be. And it's going to be a percentage of the business that comes in. And by contracting this out, you know, we're not going out and hiring 5 employees that we have to pay regardless if business goes down. And if business goes up, well, they have the extra employees to cover that for us. And yes, they're making more, but they're doing more work. It, to me, is almost a no-brainer that it just makes financial sense to move forward with this versus the alternative, which would be bringing it back in-house.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you on that. We're not at the point right now to bring this back in-house, and they're only getting paid a percentage of what comes in, and you know, eventually we're running out of space for things, and our building fees are going to go down, and their fees are going to be going down, because pretty soon all we're going to be having is, you know, like remodeling and fees of that nature. We're not going to be having the big 400,000 square foot buildings like we got going on at the Ford property and stuff right now. So yeah, I totally agree that this makes a whole lot of sense to approve this contract tonight. Councilmember Granlund Fox?
So I would think about making a motion to table, but it sounds like it wouldn't pass. So I mean, there's probably no point to do that, but I can't support it without all the information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Smiley?
Before I make, Ms. Lindsay looks like she wants to say something, and then we said something.
Go ahead.
Thank you. You're exactly right, Councilman Behrman. We take the hit when the economy goes down. Our fees are supported strictly from the permit revenue, and that is generated by projects. So 3 years ago, I met with City Manager Brown about how deeply low our revenue was, and that we were considering having the conversation as to how we would continue the service levels. So if I had a graph, and I wish I had a photographic memory because I did all the research, Councilwoman Fox, that supported every year and how we were up and down and up and down. And it again is generated by the building activity. And when we talk about FTEs and part-timers, what really is that? So is it a salary? Certainly yes. Is it a vehicle? Yes. Is it insurances for the vehicle? Yes. Is it health insurance? Yes. Is it dental? Yes. Medical, all of that. Is it workers' compensation? It's all of those things that as you hire folks, you give a benefit package to, and that's what we offer our teammates, our full benefit packages and excellent compensation. And inspectors today, as you pointed out, are worth more than they've ever been. It's known. I'm sure all of you have heard about it. So what else do you get for what you see on a line item? We have a national recruiting team, and all they do every day is look for credentialed individuals to add to our team behind the scenes, so that there's never a lapse and that we continue to maintain that depth of bench that is needed in a city such as Wixom for the ebb and flow of projects. And this year was amazing. Last year was amazing. The year before, not so much. So we take that hit, and along with it aren't just 3 FTEs and 2 part-timers. It's the whole package, and consequently our part-timers are also afforded a company vehicle. All the equipment that they need to do their jobs, cell phones, everything like that. So I know on a line item it can look like something, but it's much more than that, and I appreciate you allowing me to elaborate on that.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to, I support, this item. I thank Deputy Mayor Resnick for having those numbers, which is helpful, but like Councilman Berman said, it's a percentage. It sounds like these numbers fluctuate wildly depending on what's going on in the world. So, one other thing worth mentioning, I don't know if this is the alternative that, some folks might be angling towards. But we looked into bringing this in-house a few years ago, and it was not a good idea. That may change in the future, but I'm not interested in revisiting that. So I'm good with this as is.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I forgot to ask one of my questions because we got into the numbers there, but when I was looking at the numbers, I noticed one of our revenue items was a rental review fee, and I think, is that tied to our ordinance on the rental properties? And does Safe Built actually do those inspections, or is?
We do a rental inspection. I don't know what the rental review fee is. I would say we don't get that portion of that, but we do get a $54 fee, a portion of a $54 fee, 63% of the $54 to go look at a rental.
Oh, so you actually.
So there is yeah, we do collect a small fee. It amounts to about $35.
Councilmember Grella Fox?
So I'm not by any means suggesting that we should hire 3 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm trying to focus on the fact of the numbers, and I appreciate everyone having numbers. They don't seem to add up to me. So again, I'm not saying that we should hire all these people to become staff on the Wixom's payroll. I'm just trying to figure out what we're getting in, what we're sending out, and trying to come up with a reasonable estimation of what those numbers are. So, thank you.
Councilmember Gacho?
Thank you. Likewise, I remember the conversation a few years ago about bringing this in-house or leaving it outside with the vendor. I think maybe some council members are reading too much into a question about numbers and wanting more information. From one of the other council members, I don't necessarily think it's appropriate. I mean, we're up here to have all the information and make educated decisions based on that information. I think we would all want the same respect that if there were questions about missing information on things that you had a problem with, everyone didn't just try to roll it over and say, I'm fine with it. And since I don't mind being the contrarian up here sometimes, I will make a motion to table this until we can get further information. Thank you.
All right.
Support.
All right. I have a motion and support to table the recommendation to approve an amended professional service agreement with Safe Built Michigan LLC. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion to table because I support council's request for additional data. I've frequently asked for data about things myself. Sometimes I've gotten supported, sometimes I haven't, but I want to show my support for council if there's additional data. However, I did want to say to Ms. Lindsay, very effective presentation you just made. I just wish you had the data with you. The words are great, but if we'd seen the chart, maybe we wouldn't be potentially having a vote to table. I'm not sure it's going to pass, but we'll see where it goes. But I will support when we vote on the amendment to table, I will vote for it.
Councilmember Berman?
I guess my only question is what more information are we looking for than we don't already have in our budget packet? Because we already have all the information, at least I believe we have all the information of what we paid them the last 5, 6, 7 years in the budget packet we review each year. So if that's information we wanted tonight, I could have brought my budget with me. So I guess I'm not sure. What more are we asking for?
Councilmember Smiley had his hand up first, and I'll come down
Oh,
here.
no, I'd rather hear the answer.
Oh, okay. Okay. Councilmember Gatchel?
I mean, we don't, our budgets do not go back 5, 6, 7 years, they go back 1, and we vote on it prior to the end of the fiscal year we're in. So the best we get is an estimated actual amount up to a certain point. We don't ever get the final figure. So I don't know that we've ever been given a document that has the final fiscal amount that we have paid to Safeville. I think some of this is getting blown out of proportion, like it's an attack on Safeville. It isn't. I'm very satisfied. I really appreciate Ken's responsiveness and adding in the, like I had requested and a few other council members, the ordinance enforcement numbers and whatnot. And it's interesting to see how many unpermitted things that are going on, but I'd be hard pressed to find any document that we've been given since July that has the final count on what was paid to Safeville. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Each budget cycle, we are given budget book, and it does give the actual from the prior year, not the current year. So we know that from our final resolutions in our May meeting. So those are there. And you can go back year after year. I've got 14 of these budgets in my house. I can go back and get those. So, since I think Mayor Hinckley signed that contract in 2013, we've got the data, so I'm willing to go on it.
All right, but we have, go ahead, Councilmember Smiley.
Just a quick, sorry if I, made it sound like I don't like questions and digging into this stuff. I love it. I think it's great. When I was a young councilman or, first a councilman, I sometimes felt like people didn't like my questions. I don't want to be that guy, so this is fine. I'll even go so far as to support tabling it so that, everybody's satisfied since we have time. And if we can work it out so that, Ms. Lindsay doesn't have to drive all the way back here, that'd be great. So I'm sure you don't mind what you're going to say, but
Yes.
don't worry, we can figure this out. We just need some numbers to, fully digest it.
Your Honor, before you vote on it, I'd like to say something which I don't think is taking a position in any way or shape or form. I'm just trying to trying to put a finer point on the question before you, I guess. There's concern about what was the number this year versus that year, what was the number 5 years ago, what was the number 2 years ago, whatever. The fact of the matter is we know what the fees are. It's 63.5% of that permit fee schedule, right? So, going to the estimate that, if it was $470,000 that was referenced earlier, I believe, from Deputy Mayor Resnick, the revenue that would have been counted against would have been $740,000 and change. And exercises about whether it's going to be this amount or what it was 2 years ago or what it was last year, I just want to point out it's going to be 0.635% of whatever revenue we receive. If you have an issue with the percentage, then you have an issue with the percentage, I guess. If you don't have an issue with the percentage, then you don't have an issue with the percentage, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what the actual number was. It doesn't matter what the actual number is going to be. Whatever that number is or was is going to be applied at 0.635%, and that's what their charge is. I mean, fundamentally. I understand maybe having the benefit of what it was last year, the year before might be interesting from an academic exercise kind of thing, but the fact of the matter is, if it's $1 million, it's going to cost you $635,000. If it's $500,000, it's going to cost you $317,500, and so on and so forth. We can't project what the fees are going to be next year necessarily with a great degree of accuracy. We do take a guess at it, but they will be what they will be, and that will be applied to that 0.635%. That will be, if that helps. That's from my perspective, the decision point is whether the percentage is fair or not, as opposed to what the dollar is going to turn out to be.
And with that, I have a motion and support to table the recommendation to approve an amended professional service agreement with Safe Built Michigan LLC. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Yes.
Councilmember Grundlin Fox?
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Beagle?
No.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
No?
Councilmember Behrman?
No.
4 yes, 3 no.
All right.
See you on the 29th.
See you on the 29th. Moving on to new business number 2 is a recommendation to accept the proposal for design engineering construction services for the 2023 West Maple Road Rehabilitation Project from Spalding D. Decker of Novi, Michigan for a total not to exceed $79,000 for design engineering and $128,000 for construction engineering. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Support.
Mr. Sigma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, you have a recommendation to hire Spalding D. Decker to design and for design and construction engineering for West Maple Road, from Wixom Road to Beck Road. And this, they are considered the low bid on the engineering. And we have met with them, and they have, and actually I have a member of Spalding D. Decker here, Jeremy Schroet. He is here if you have questions for them. We had 5 different engineering companies that have set up proposals, and I would be happy to answer questions on either the bid tab that you have before you or questions about the project.
Councilmember Gatchell.
Thank you. In looking at the breakdown of all the tabulations, it was, I think, phenomenal that we got as many bids as we did. Did all of the firms bid the project the same way, or were some like bidding it as mill and overlay and others said full reconstruct? Because the numbers here vary quite a bit.
Yes, that's a great question. And the way we put that proposal out was design and or reconstruct, depending on what was felt. And speaking with the different companies that I was able to talk to, I think what happened was the high end was they were estimating on a full reconstruct, and the two on the lower end was estimating more on the mill and overlays portion. And our RFP was asking for a 20-year road, and so you're kind of hedging your bets maybe, but they're speaking with Spalding D. Decker. We feel that they can give us a 20-year road, and this they're thinking that there is a number of areas that we can do a mill and overlay on, and I guess that would depend on the core samples that they will be doing here before they finish their design.
So they haven't, no one has done sampling, we don't know what the base looks like. So this number, if we start to pull a number of samples and it comes back that the road's pretty much fried and we need to do a full reconstruct, this potentially changes?
Yeah, potentially, but given what we feel is out there, we think that they'll be able to support this. I can have Jeremy come on and just decide to speak with you on that as well.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that question, as well as I guess just one for Tim or Jeremy even. Is it not typical for an engineering firm to go look at the base and sample and everything before making this, just so we don't run into changes?
It's not typical for us to go out and get geotechnical soil borings ahead of time, but what we do is a field evaluation. So we run a number of road programs for communities across the state, including Novi and Canton. So fairly familiar with what it looks like and what it needs from a rehab perspective. The way we bid this was more like portions of resurfacing and portions of reconstruct. We do that a lot. It's a kind of a best fit. And we really looked at the budget too of how much money is allocated for this project, and you can't necessarily afford a full reconstruct based on that without taking money from somewhere else. So from a design perspective, a reconstruct is actually easier than what we're doing from a rehab. You got to find a lot of different areas, tie them all together, make sure the slopes are right. The only thing that may increase is if you go to a full reconstruct, it may take longer for the contractor to construct it, which would affect our construction engineering number.
And then when it comes to mill and overlay, we're talking about rounding down a substantial amount, not doing what the Brain Trust at RCOC just did on Pontiac Trail, where they kind of asphalt in ramps into the road at intersections. Like it'll be a nice level road.
Yeah, that would be the intent, right? We'd mill out butt joints, and you'd have temporary ramps during construction until we repaved it, but yeah, that'd be the intent.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
And if I may ask Jeremy a question here. So it was discussed during the course of evaluating the bids that, you know, there's a certain amount of time required, in your opinion, for an engineering task of this sort, and you factored in everything that you see based on your examination of the roadway to come up with the bid that you provided, and you don't expect to be far off from that bid based on the circumstances you see before you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So as a part of our due diligence, we did visit the field, we did produce our own estimate, we did look at the budget, and then we do break that into a number of days for construction, so we anticipate how long we think a contractor is going to take. We have a lot of evidence to support that too, because we do a lot of these programs across the state.
With that one qualifier that you mentioned a second ago, that if it were to change fundamentally to a full reconstruction, that might affect the number of inspection days, and that might affect some of the costs.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So we did go through that exercise where we talked to them about how comfortable they were with their bid, and they were quite comfortable with the bid.
Councilmember Berman?
I just wanted to thank Tim for going through the process and bidding this out. I know often we seem to award a lot of our engineering to which happened to be the highest bidder in this tabulation. And I think this just speaks volumes that we really need to continue bidding these projects out, because it's $140,000 in savings by bidding this out. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Spalding, was it? I'm sorry.
Mr. Schroed.
Schroed, yeah, sorry. Did you see the tabulations?
I did, yeah.
Are you shocked by the difference?
We see a lot of these, so we see a lot of different numbers. I'm not surprised at kind of where it ended up. We compete a lot of times for low bid, and you know.
But you're not new to the area, so you must have competed against these firms for other jobs. You don't need to answer it here, but just I wanted to point out to council, there's one spot in particular, design development phase services includes obtaining all necessary permits. I don't know exactly what's in there. Maybe offline sometime you can educate me, or Tim, you can educate me. $30,000 for Spalding to Decker, and the high bidder was $80,000. It's just, what is in there? So I can't believe whatever that is, you guys missed it by 2.5 times. So I agree with Councilmember Behrman, and I'm really happy with the number of bids we got. I'm happy that Tim and his team has vetted them, and their proposal is Spalding to Decker. I'm sorry, that's why I said Mr. Spalding. I support the recommendation. I just think, hey, give you a shot. You got a year, right? We'll know next year at this time whether you guys are in the ballpark or not. So thank you.
Anybody else? All right, and if you're, all those people who live on West Maple, if they're watching at home, we told you we were going to do this, and you doubted us. We've been pushing it down the road. Well, you're getting it now. I got a motion and a support to approve the recommendation to accept the proposal for design engineering and construction services for the 2023 West Maple Road Rehabilitation Project from Spalding to Decker of Novi, Michigan, for a total not to exceed $79,000 for design engineering and $128,000 for construction engineering. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
you. New business number 3, Tim, don't go anywhere. Yep. Is a recommendation to introduce a mandatory ordinance to the City of Wixom's Code of Ordinances, Title 13, Public Services, Chapter 13.16, engineering design standards for subdivisions and project improvements, sections 13.16.20, generally, to add provisions adopting the updated stormwater design standards of the Oakland County Water Resources Commission and set a public hearing for November 29th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Mr. Sickman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, what you have before you now is a change to our local ordinances for engineering design standards for stormwater maintenance. And back in 2003, the city had successfully battled with the state for requirements on design and engineering for stormwater management. And through that process, Oakland County worked on several different ways to have best management practices worked into the stormwater. And I think we've both in the Huron River watershed and the Alliance for the Rouge Communities watersheds that we have, that actually the stormwater goes to, we've developed a much better defined program. And recently our NPDES permit has changed back in July of this year. And one of those changes was the requirement for better engineering standards. And Oakland County through the years has developed a very good program, and last year about this time presented it, and it's been accepted in several of the communities already. Our proposal for ordinance changes are based specifically with Farmington Hills and different areas that recommend utilizing Oakland County's engineering standards for design. And what that really means is there are certain detention basin requirements depending on the size of the project that's completed, and also the drainage requirements that would be also calculated. And each one of those would be determined in the planning of a new project. So I think these standards are good. And I think they will promote stormwater management in the future.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you. Tim, it was fascinating reading through this. Educated myself a lot in stormwater management and the 100-year flows and sizes and all. But one of the questions I had was, will this same standard be adopted throughout the Oakland County communities?
Yes.
We have three river basins that we serve, right, as a county, big ones, right?
Right.
Huron, Rouge, and then with
Clinton River.
So will they be adopted in all of them?
And the plan is to have them adopted with all of them. And that was one of the alliances, I guess, that we developed over the years with different communities. And, we took a regional approach. And I think, the state obviously kind of promoted that and moved forward with that, because really the best management is point source on a number of different areas for stormwater management. Some communities are going with utility-based as well, but for our two watersheds, we're planning on being able to utilize this package and the best management practices that are provided to do that.
Very comprehensive.
Yeah.
It's intended to go across the metro region, right? Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and also Livingston is looking to adopt the same standards within their processes. So.
Anybody else? All right, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to introduce an amendatory ordinance to the City of Wixom's Code of Ordinances, Title 13, Public Services, Chapter 13.16, Engineering Design Standards for Subdivisions and Project Improvements, Section 13.16.20, generally, and to add provisions adopting the updated stormwater design standards of the Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner, and to set a public hearing for November 29th, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Moves us to new business number 4 is a recommendation and request to convene in a closed session of the City Council in ordinance of the Michigan Open Meetings Act for the purpose of discussing the periodic personnel evaluations of the city clerk and the city manager pursuant to and authorized by MCL 15.268A. A motion?
So moved.
Support?
Councilmember Brendan Fox?
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gatchel?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. And that moves us, that concludes new business portion of the meeting tonight, moves us to the call to the public. It's the second call to the public tonight. The rules, I'll do it again, read them again, is the public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the second call to the public tonight?
Good evening. Mike Smith, 1692 Norton Creek, Wixom, Michigan. Of course, it's Wixom, Michigan. With the Wixom Firefighters Union. It's been a while since I've been up here to talk to you guys. Usually I'm up here to kind of criticize, condemn, and complain about what's been going on. And tonight I kind of have the opposite. I want to say things are actually moving in an extremely positive direction at the fire department. With the leadership of our interim chief, we've got our trainings. We used to only have a few guys show up for trainings on Wednesday nights. We're getting guys coming, almost every single guy, every single Wednesday. And not only that, the guys are excited about coming to training. They're excited about what they're learning. And then, I'm not sure what was in the report, but we're banging down the doors with people coming in and applying and interviewing. And I think in the matter of a few weeks, we could double our current roster. And I just think that speaks volumes to everything that the chief's been doing, city manager's been doing, the police department running through our background checks. I mean, things are streamlined and things have moved really fast over the last few months. So I think we're in a really good spot. I just want to let you guys know.
Thank you. What are you going to do with that extra sleep now?
Yeah.
Anybody else for the second call to the public? I'll close the second call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. We've got a city manager update that was chock full of good things here as well. Information item about me going through Michigan Certified Assessing Technician certification. That's something that we've been focusing on in the city manager's office. We've got Drew Benson already achieving it, Cheryl Lucas already achieving it, and I just joined that group. So we wanted to have everybody on staff having a basic understanding of the way that we process paperwork and some of the basic understanding of how assessing works. So that was a great training class that I had a chance to attend at Okemos and complete it in October. It was really good opportunity, and pleased that we got that accomplished in our department. There's 3 more nice complimentary things that were provided, one related to Wixom Assembly Park, and that one's kind of an interesting anecdotal one. I had a guy that contacted me a couple times to express his displeasure with what was happening vis-a-vis the Wixom Assembly Park construction, dust on the roadway, this kind of stuff, and he called unsolicited out of the blue and was very complimentary about the improvement that the Wixom Assembly Park has made to the aesthetics along Wixom Road and what it's bringing to the community, so that was nice to hear from him. He was never rude or anything about it. He was just expressing that he had some concerns about the way things were going with the construction. So it was one of those things where that short-term problem means long-term relief type of thing, like they like to talk about. So that was one item. There was also something about the Michigan Airline Trail that our trail manager received something very nice about how outstanding Phase 2 of the trail was and how excited people were to ride it and how excited they were to see that as an addition to the trail network in our region. And then the last one is related to community services. We had DPW employee Tom Martin, who was complimented by a resident who was attending the panther hunt and unfortunately lost his wallet. Solicited for some help on that. Tom heard him and went back and searched along the line, if you will, and it ended happily. He got his wallet back. He was very pleased with that. And then just in general, he wanted to talk about how nice the Panther event was, and all of them have a common thread that I wanted to emphasize, and hopefully my report did that. Each one of those items with Wixom Assembly Park, the Michigan Airline Trail, the Panther event, just have a lot of different people that are contributing to its success, the development, the execution. Police department, fire department, construction and development services, the coordination that we have with the Trailway Council, with the multiple communities that have been involved with the construction of the Michigan Airline Trail. It's just a lot of different moving parts, if you will, and very nice compliments that were received by everybody that had their hands on those particular projects. These are the kind of things that make it worthwhile when you're working in public service like this, to get nice feedback like that and to do great projects like what's happened on Wixom Road, like what's happened on the Michigan Airline Trail, and ongoing events like the Panther event that just bring a lot of joy into the community. So I just wanted to address it from that standpoint, say congratulations to all the different employees that had a hand in it, because there were a ton of them. And then other than that, I was going to mention the dates are provided for the different events that are upcoming. And if there's anything that's on your mind, be happy to try to address them tonight or get an answer to you in the future. Thanks.
You're welcome. Council comments, Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. I have a little something special to do, for my comments tonight, but before I get into that, real quickly, everyone, please have a happy Thanksgiving next week. And for my special thing here, each of the past 9 years, the Wall Lake Central and Wall Lake Northern football teams play each other in the Salute to Service game. This game honors our military and first responders and recognizes many local brave men and women who are serving or have served or have given their lives to our freedom and safety. The players in the game wear jerseys with the names of honored military and first responders, and those jerseys are then presented to the honorees after the game. There's a lot of Wixom connections here, and I'll make all that clear shortly. One of those is Wixom's very own interim chief, Brad Giesler, and our police chief, Phil Langmeyer, were among those honored. And I have Brad's jersey here with me. And we're going to give that to him just real quick here so you can see Phil has his, Chief Langmeyer has his over there already.
I thought he was wearing it.
I asked him to. I'm going to come down there in a second and give that to you. Okay. Oh, they also receive a challenge coin provided by the Heroes Operation. A special thank you to them for their great organization. Very nice. That's for you, Brad. Phil has his already. And it's worth noting that proceeds from these sponsorships go to Military Families United, whose mission is to honor the fallen, support those who fight, and serve their families. Military Families United is run by Wixom residents Debbie and John Ellsworth. A special thanks to them as well. Brad, Phil, thank you for your community. Thank you from the community for your service, and I applaud you. I'm going to give this to Phil. We'll take some pictures right after our little break here. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll get some pictures here in a second. All right, I won't.
We talked about cake, but I couldn't get one ordered in time, so it was my fault.
Yeah.
Excuses.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things. One, just thanks to City Clerk Kathy Buck and her team for another flawless, as far as I can tell, election day coverage. Apparently around at 10:30, and So no hand counting here in Wixom, thank goodness. I also want to thank firefighter Mike Smith for his words. That really feels good up here. We felt the same thing over a course of a few reports we've gotten, but it's good to hear it from you that things are going well. Because, and I don't know if Steve put you up to it, because we're giving him his PR here in a few minutes. It really sounded good. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Gadsden.
Thank you. I have a few notes here. With the new hawk signal on Wixom Road, I think it was Councilmember Behrman commented that he ran into it and there wasn't an issue. My very first time crossing it the other day, someone driving stopped before the hawk signal was red, and I just wanted to slam my head on the steering wheel. I will never understand how people don't get that. So I think we still have a lot of educating to do about both types of signals. And then I had followed up with the city manager about, earlier I had made a joke about Pontiac Trail. Have we had any communication with the county yet about Beck Road and Pontiac Trail, the hump they paved into that?
I have spoken with them, and there's...
Tim did have an extended conversation with him of some sort here, and just waiting for the report here.
Yeah, we haven't gotten a final report back from RCOC, but I have spoken with them regarding the issues that you had mentioned. Not sure. I also spoke with some engineering about this. Not really much that we can do at this point for the crown itself. The speeds through there, if run at posted speeds, are safe. That's, yes, posted speeds. And that's kind of what you get a lot of times on a mill and overlay. They are a little higher on the crown just because of the way it's designed. But the side pieces, the bumps, in front of City Hall and whatnot, I think that will change over the course of next year or so. That as we plow, using the plows and whatnot, it will level out on that piece. But that's what we have.
I honestly would not be shocked if we had some equipment issues plowing Beck Road this year at Pontiac Trail, because it's, even at posted speeds, it's a ramp. And like, we can call what they did a mill and overlay, but it was really just like a gentle grind in portions and overlay. And so they didn't mill the middle of it and they put in a giant hump, and it really isn't safe. And so once the road's ice over too, it's really gonna be an issue. For the life of me, I wish they would come grind down what they did and correct it, but I understand they don't want to do that because they already did it wrong the first time. So, yeah, I hope we can just keep in touch with them and keep on them, because I do expect that we'll probably see more accidents there throughout the winter, and maybe some mechanical issues with our vehicles too.
I will express your dissatisfaction.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's on the other side of the street.
And then, before I get to the good section of my comments, I guess, like, driving along Wixom Road, looking at the new buildings going up by Flint Development, I know that council had the opportunity to review and comment on the first two buildings that went up, and we really stressed wanting more glass to break things up. That looks like that was not carried on to the newest buildings going on, and there's a marked difference in the number of windows in the new buildings, and I don't see that they have an intention to go back and cut in for new windows. Where did that fall apart in the process, that now we've got this long building on Wixom Road with virtually no glass on it?
We can look at the site plans and verify that everything is copacetic in terms of what was put in front of us and what was approved and what was ultimately put on the ground. I was looking at the different things that were done visually to break up the the look of the building in terms of like the entranceway with the color highlights in a couple of different spots. I was noticing that myself. I can't say that I noticed the windows, but I'll go back and take a look at the site plan and see if there's discrepancies there. If there's anything that's an issue, we can address it through that process.
Yeah, I'm not, like, I know the portion we talked about was just the first phase.
Right.
And so they might have said, oh, we'll add glass to this, but we're going to try and slide it through and not do it on the other one. But just driving by and looking at the building that is already occupied, that runs along Wixom Road, it almost seems like a 2-to-1 count on the number of windows at the second level compared to the building they're working on right now.
Right.
So that's just something that struck me as not what I think most of us were expecting, and not something I would have hoped would have slid under the radar.
I've got a couple of ideas about what might be going on there. I'll take a look at it.
Moving on, I did want to congratulate you on your recent certification for assessee, and thank the city clerk and assistant city clerk and all of our election workers for a smooth election in the city. We didn't make the national news with any conspiracy theories, so it must have been a good one. It did seem, though, did we get any feedback from the county about processing times? It did seem like, as I was watching city results, it took a little bit longer than normal. Was that just high vote counting, or did the county run into any slowdowns that we know of, or have we not really gotten a report back?
As far as absentees or just in general?
In general with the process.
Yeah, there were all kinds of transmitting issues across the entire county. We were lucky, very fortunate. It took a long time for our 4 precincts to go,
Yep.
but they finally went.
Okay.
And I know a lot of communities. I heard today Farmington Hills had 7 precincts that would not transmit.
Okay.
So I think it was widespread
Okay.
throughout the whole county. I feel we were very fortunate.
Yeah, it was just one of those things, as I was updating, it just seemed like compared to previous elections, when we were doing it in-house, it was dragging out. I know we don't want to keep all of you here until like 2 or 3 a.m., but I was just wondering if there was any feedback from the county. So
As far as the absentees, those were finished by 8 o'clock at the county.
Okay. But then just everyone transmitting wasn't just an us issue. It was,
Right.
Okay.
We can put the results on a bus next year and they'll be able to get them there.
Faster.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Berman.
Thank you. I also wanted to I thought the election process went smooth from my perspective, and it seemed like we were really busy when I was up here, and then also feedback from other people, but it seemed like it was still moving through. And I just wanted to say thank you to Rob for putting his heart out there and running. I know it didn't end up the way you wanted, but that being said, it means a lot that you're willing to continue to try to represent our community, and I appreciate that you did make that effort and do that run. Also, I was excited to see that we're seeing in Drew's memo today that we're starting to see something coming about the downtown VCA area. I'm excited to see what the Planning Commission says about that, and we get their feedback, and hopefully we can get that moving forward. I feel like we've been waiting a little while for that, so it's nice to see that that's moving forward. And then lastly, I feel like some of our projects we've been doing, they're getting off the ground running really well, but then maybe like finishing them up, there's some attention to detail issues at the end. And I just give a couple examples. I'll start with my neighborhood. There's still all the, most of the sewer drains still have the whatever felt in it or whatever to stop dirt and debris from going down into the sewer. And I mean, they've been done doing construction there for months, but that still haven't been removed. And one of my neighbors pointed out to me the other day, when the snow plows start coming through, it's just going to take one blade to grab that felt, and it's going to be a huge open sewer drain that someone's going to be able to fall in. I'm not sure why those haven't been removed. I really feel like that should have been done before the leaves started falling, but it really needs to be done before the snow plows start hitting the street. And then the second thing was the trail downtown, Mack Park in particular. I walked through that with my kids this last weekend, and the trail is really nice, but I mean the park looks horrible. I mean there's just signs, construction signs everywhere that aren't getting used. So if the vendor who put those signs there isn't going to pick them up, then can we at least pick them up ourselves and put them in DPW? It's a trip hazard on the sidewalk. The Mack Park sign itself is laying on the ground. Like, it got ripped off the green pole, and the sign is just laying on the ground. They removed a section of privacy fence, and it's just piled next to the railroad tracks. It just looks really bad for the amount of money that we spent on this. Just a couple hours, a couple people to clean that up would really go a long ways. And that's all I got.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Thank you, Steve, for attending the assessing course and passing it. Congratulations.
I was
And
sweating for a while.
Pardon me?
I was sweating that test.
I'd like to say thank you to the fire department for letting us know what's going on and for the positive comments, and I'm glad that things are moving along. It's got to make, I'm sure, everyone feel better and maybe not so exhausted. Thank you to Kathy for the election. Do you know what the turnout rate was?
58%.
Wow. I knew it was. I've never seen it so crowded, which was good, at least in a long time. I shouldn't say number, but that was
Felt
great.
higher to me.
Pardon?
It felt higher to me.
I'm sure it did. And then thank you, Steve, for sharing the compliments and the positive comments. I agree that when you, especially when you work in the public sector, and you hear complaints more than you hear the positive. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
That's great for everyone. And then lastly, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to congratulate Steve on his MCAT. Great job.
Thank you.
And of course to Kathy and Crystal and all the volunteers from this election. It's amazing how much work and effort is put into that. And again, it's not just a one-day event. The patience that they have to have with people that come in at 10 minutes to 8 wanting to register to vote, let alone cast a ballot. It just boggles my mind. The same people register for classes months before, but they couldn't register to vote prior. But you have a lot of patience and professionalism, and it was really good to see. I also echo a lot of Councilman Gottschall's comments about the Wixom Logistics Park. In addition to the windows, the setback in Building C, the bike trail that was supposed to be inboard, not so close to Wixom Road, and of course the lane that is not complete all the way down to the freeway. There's quite a number of things that I think we got hoodwinked on from that one meeting, and it's a shame. Also very encouraging on the fire recruiting. Maybe you can show up at my facility and my day job and do some recruiting for me. That's really good news. As many fire departments across the country that are really struggling right now. It's good news. And then relative to the Hawk Light too, I had quite a bit of time to spend with John Hensler and with Kristen from RCOC at the SOCMA dinner, and we talked about creative ways to educate the public on how this works. And one thing I had noticed in other communities is a sign large enough to read right on the post with the Hawk signal, as a number of communities do that, so it can educate the driver as they're standing still, maybe for that non-blinking light, or the blinking red when they can proceed if it's safe. So, we had a lot of discussion about that amongst us, so hopefully we can get some educational pieces out there, and people will eventually learn how to use it. So that's all I have.
Very good. And I'd like to congratulate City Manager Brown on receiving his MCAT certification, and I'd like to thank and congratulate Kathy and Crystal on a successful election. I got to brag a little bit is at the SOCMA meeting the next day. Is they were saying, you know, the surrounding mayors like 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and I said, hey, our clerks were checked out and gone home. They were in bed by 11 o'clock, and they were like, there's no way. So I got to do a little bragging on you guys, so that's good. And with that, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll now adjourn to closed session. Thank you.